Hello and welcome to lesson 9.8. Today we're going to look at factoring four-term polynomials. So our objectives are going to be specifically to be looking at polynomials that have four terms, and we're going to see how to factor those. To factor a polynomial with four terms, we're going to use a method called grouping. So in order to factor by grouping, you must have two groups of terms that have the same factor. So if I put these first two terms together and these last two terms together, I'm going to factor out a common factor. So between x cubed and 3x squared, I see that I can factor out an x squared, and that's going to leave me with an x plus 3. I'm going to bring down my sign in between the two groups, and then I have my next group, which is 4x plus 12. Well, out of the 4x plus 12, I can factor a 4, and this is going to leave me with an x plus 3. So because both of these groups have a common factor, that x plus 3, I can now go ahead and proceed on with the grouping method. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out the common factors in both groups, which is the x plus 3. And then my other factor then is going to be everything that is left over. So notice I have an x squared plus 4. So I have x squared plus 4. And when I'm just going to do one final double check and make sure I can't factor anything out of x plus 3, and I cannot factor anything out of x squared plus 2. So that tells me then that x plus 3 times a quantity of x squared plus 4 are my two factors. Now, if you wanted to, you could go ahead and distribute the x plus 3 onto the x squared plus 4, and you will see that you end up with this original polynomial. So let's take a look at a few more examples, and then we will wrap up chapter 9. For example 1, we're going to factor 5x to the fourth plus 20x cubed plus 6x plus 4. So again, because this is written in standard form, I'm going to try grouping the first two and the last two terms together, and then I'm going to factor out anything that those groups have in common. So with 5x to the fourth and 20x cubed, I can take a 5x cubed out, and that's going to leave me with an x plus 4. I bring down my addition sign, and then with the 6x plus 24, I can actually factor a 6 out of both, and that's going to leave me with a 6 plus 4. Now again, I have to double check. I do have the same factor in both new groups, so that's going to be x plus 4. I'll pull that out up front. And then my next factor is going to be everything that's left over, which is the 5x cubed plus 6x, plus 6. I can't simplify x plus 4, and I cannot simplify 5x cubed plus 6, so these are my final factors of that polynomial. For example 2, I have 4x cubed plus 8x squared minus 5x minus 10. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go and I'm going to group the first and the last two terms together. And here I've got, I can factor a 4x squared out, and that's going to leave me with an x plus 2. And then I'm going to bring down my subtraction sign, and I'm going to factor out, it looks like 5x and 10 both have a 5 in that. Now, I want to take a quick second and show you that when you have a subtraction in the middle, this is slightly different. Okay, and the fact is because I'm actually factoring out a negative 5. So because I'm factoring out a negative 5, I have an x here, and I need to think to myself, what do I multiply a negative 5 by in order to get that negative 10? Well, that tells me that my middle term is going to have to be a positive. So I'm going to change my sign in the middle, and that would be a positive 2. So negative 5, and if you want to just kind of do a quick double check, negative 5 times x will give me my negative 5x. Negative 5 times a positive 2 will give me my negative 10, which is what I have right there. So then I'm going to close my parentheses, and then I'm just going to double check and say I have an x plus 2 and an x plus 2. Those are the same. Now sometimes a red flag is drawn up if you actually do the double checking, because if I would have had an x minus 2 here and an x plus 2 in the first term, that would have been a red flag that maybe I forgot to factor out a negative. Okay, so always double check that you factor out negatives. But in this case, because I do have x plus 2 and x plus 2 in both, I'm going to bring that down up front. And then I'm going to just pull out what's left over, which is a 4x squared, and then the minus 5. I can't simplify either one of these factors, so this is my final factors. And for our last example, again, we're going to group the first two and the last two terms together. I can take out an x squared, and then I'm left with a 2x plus 1. I have a negative, so again, I've got to think about that negative sign. I can factor a 7 out of both terms, which will leave me with a 2x. And again, because I'm factoring out a negative 7, I do need to change the sign. So because this up here is a negative, I'm going to have to make this a positive, and this will become a 1 here. So again, just as a double check, I have 2x plus 1 and 2x plus 1, which is exactly what I wanted. So I have 2x plus 1, and then the stuff that is left over is going to be the x squared minus 7. I cannot simplify 2x plus 1 anymore. And although x squared minus 7 looks like a difference of 2 squares, 7 is not a perfect square, so this is completely factored as well. And that makes these my final two factors. Please let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, I hope you guys have a great day, and I will see you in class.